Hi, and here we are ready to do our review really quick on photosynthesis and cellular respiration, so you can see how they both coincide together so beautifully and see how they both feed into each other wonderfully. So first I want to draw a mitochondria and a chloroplast on the board. So let's fill in what we know about how everything works. So if I have a mitochondria here, and I got a chloroplast here. All right, let's fill in the details. On a mitochondria, I got my inner membrane. Chloroplast, I got my inner membrane. And I got my thylakoids. All right, so this is the mitochondria. And this is the chloroplast. All right, let's draw what we know, what's going on here. So outside of the mitochondria and the cytosol, what's going on? What's the first thing, if you look back in your notes, the first stage of cellular respiration? So this would be cellular respiration on this side of the game, and this would be photosynthesis. All right, outside the mitochondria, you got glycolysis happening, where you got glucose going to pyruvate, and that pyruvate enters the matrix, and you go through the citric acid cycle, and all the while that during both of these phases you got ATP from glycolysis, and you're also making NADH, electron carriers. During the citric acid cycle, you're making your CO2. And so from both of these, you're making NADH. And here you're also making FADH2. Okay, now you're going to feed into the last phase of the mitochondria, which is your oxidative phosphorylation. And in that, you have oxygen here that's going to become water, and all your electron carriers are going to drop off. We're going to make water, and eventually you're going to make tons of ATP. All right, so our reactants, the stuff that went in to this was glucose and oxygen. The stuff that came out was carbon dioxide, ATP, and water. All right, let's go over to the chloroplast here. So in this case, we have water going in and some energy. So water goes in, oxygen comes out. During this whole entire time, we're making some cellular energy. We got some ATP. We're also making our electron carriers. We got our NADPH, NADPH, and CO2 is going in. Rubisco takes the carbon off of carbon dioxide, converts it. All these different molecules get made. You get 1G3P made that's eventually going to become glucose. That's what we care about. And in the meantime, you're building your carbon dioxide acceptor again to keep this Calvin cycle going. So here's your Calvin cycle. And these are the light reactions. So ATP feeds into that, NADPH feeds into that, and on the way out, you make some ADP because it got used, it goes back into the light reactions. You also make NADP+, also goes back into the light reactions. All right, now let's look at the chloroplast. what goes into the chloroplast. If we use purple like we did over here, water goes in, CO2 goes in, and energy goes in. The stuff that comes out, oxygen and glucose. All right. Now I want you to connect the dots and see how the mitochondria and the chloroplast are related so beautifully. So mitochondria make CO2, spits out CO2. CO2 gets taken in by the chloroplast, makes glucose. Glucose gets used by the mitochondria, eventually makes water. Water gets used by the chloroplast to make oxygen, which is what we need for cellular respiration. These two are in beautiful symbiotic relationships right here. And both of these are present in a plant cell. So you could just see how plants are, they technically could be independent of us creating carbon dioxide for them to survive. But the beautiful thing about plants is that they could acquire tons of carbon dioxide, which is great because we're making carbon dioxide, and they can produce oxygen for us to survive as well. So how these two are interrelated and how oxidative phosphorylation, it's beautiful how water gets made in oxidative phosphorylation, which includes an electron transport chain and ATP synthase. Water gets used in the chloroplast, which uses an electron transport chain and ATP synthase. So everything's kind of flipped. It's beautiful. CO2 gets made in the cycle here. CO2 gets used in the cycle here. I want you to see that beautiful detail in there. So that, my friends, is the end of this section. This is just your big overview review of how the mitochondria and the chloroplast work so beautifully together. So I hope you enjoyed it. And don't forget, we learned about enzymes as well and all the different things about enzymes. So I hope you enjoyed it and enjoy taking your test. Study well. I'm sure you'll do great. And I'll see you for the next section. We're going to start getting into cell division and eventually get into heredity and genetics and all these beautiful things. So biology is fun. I'm hoping you stick around. I'll see you soon.